All right. Welcome, everybody. We're going to give it a couple minutes here. Make sure let's see here. Speaker. There we are. All right. So we still got people coming in from the waiting room. So just give us a second. Hey, it's Timmy Perry. Hi, Mary Beth. Hey, Casey. Jacqueline. Lynette. Coach Mark. Coach Mark's here. TC. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I think everybody's audio is hooked up, but people are still coming in. So let's give it another minute. You can add captions by that button on the bottom for those of you who prefer or need captions. And all right, we are going to get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to keep things real brief on my part because we have some amazing presenters and an amazing topic. I just saw the 10-minute like pre-huddle of it, and I'm excited to take this workshop. And so I'm not going to take too much time. My name's Aaron Kacharski. If you're new to the monthly Mobilize trainings and workshops and peer sessions, welcome. It's usually the last Thursday of the month. We really wanted to take people through a process through the spring and the summer for people to have some sort of project in mind that you're working on, that you're thinking of, that you're trying to bring to light. And you might have started on it. You might I think this is the fourth one in the series. And so we wanted to bring people through that process of how do you take an idea and bring it into a reality, make it into action. So for those of us that are joining us in person in September and Mobilize, a lot of this will be a lot easier because you've gone through this process of putting together your community impact projects. And so before I turn things over, I wanted to drop two resources in the chat box for everybody. The first is for a partner of ours for Opioid Response Network. Opioid Response Network is a network of consultants across the country that are partnered with Mobilize Recovery to help people think through their projects. This can be your community impact project. It can be something you're doing for work. It can be something you're thinking about doing, or you need some research done for something, or you want to do a training coming up. Our advocates in North Carolina just used Opioid Response Network to put together a great presentation that was this morning. They did a phenomenal job. And so people are using this resource. And so I just dropped that in the chat. I'm going to ask you to submit a request for assistance. They are there as a resource, as just like this workshop, and Mobilize Recovery is here for a resource. And then the second thing, and so that's in the chat. When you go through that that request, there's a button that says, where did you hear about Opioid Response Network? Just click on the Mobilize Recovery option for that. And then I'm also just going to drop the link to our recovery organizing coaching program. So a lot of us are used to peer-to-peer support in terms of our recovery and recovery support, but this is peer-to-peer in terms of organizing coaches. And so if you are stuck in your organizing, or if you are new to organizing and you want to talk to somebody that's been doing community organizing or advocacy for a while, then you can request a recovery coach. You can request 1 to 3 sessions. And there's a really simple form to fill out that I just put in the chat box. And you tell us who you are, what you're working through, and we'll try to match you with an available and amazing recovery organizing coach. And so those are 2 resources that Recovery Advocacy Project and Mobilize Recovery has worked to help you with your projects. So I'm going to stop talking. because we have two amazing workshop presenters, both Robyn Rohde and you will do the introductions, but Joseph Green and Robyn Rohde are here. And so I'm going to pass things on to you. Thank you, everybody. We're going to record this and put it in the Community Impact Project classroom so you can watch it all the time. All right, pass things over.
Hello, everybody. Waving. During that introduction, there's something that I just noticed that like blew my mind. I don't know if anyone saw my face in response to it, but apparently now on Zoom, you can respond directly to a message. Oh man, how wonderful is that? How many times by the time my slow old fingers got down to saying what I wanted to say, had the person I was talking to all the way down? This is brilliant. So, thank the Lord for small blessings. I'm going to get our presentation up here and we're going to get going because we got lots to say and not all that much time. And bada boom. All right. And also, if you're on your computer, I don't know if it does this for you automatically. I know we are pinned, but you can change the size of the screen compared to if you want to see our faces while we're presenting. I like doing that. It makes it a little more personal to me. This is what we're doing. Bang. Own your narrative, developing the courage, connection, and resources to build movements. That is a really broad and intentionally not specific title because the things that we are talking about underneath this, I think, do contribute to all of those things, but we only have an hour here, and it's not going to be able to be a deep dive. Hopefully, you'll leave with a few new tools, you'll leave with some inspiration, and hopefully the desire to continue down these paths using some of the resources that were just shared with you in the chat. My name is Joseph Green, he, him, and I apparently just learned how to pronounce your last name, Robyn Rohde, she, her, and we will be your facilitators for this amazing workshop, which will be presented in two sections. First, the why. We're going to practice identifying, filling out common gaps in our resources that prevent our organizing success, which is a very academic way of saying that we have important things that we want to get done, and there are gaps in the people that we have in our networks to do it. And that was a very verbose way of saying something that was concise academically 2 moments ago. So I'm going to move to the how. Learn how to own your narrative in order to increase your sphere of influence. It's one thing to identify the people that we need to work with. It's a completely different thing to connect with those folks in a meaningful way that would get them to want to work on the thing that we are passionate about more than things that they have going on in their own space or other people who are also fighting for very important issues. So we're going to learn how to connect to folks through values and really make a relationship as opposed to just a transactional ask. Part one, the why.
All right. Thank you, Joseph, and welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you. I am going to take you through an activity. I'm going to ask you to make a list in a second. So if you have something to write with, a piece of scrap paper, pencil, pen, or if you want to use your phones, I'm gonna ask you to make a list here in a moment. So what this activity is designed to do is to help us analyze our network, who we have closest to us. So we'll start with identifying 5 people who are our people. They're the people who are closest to us. Maybe we would trust them to take our kids to daycare, to pick them up from school. Maybe we would trust them with a sleepover for our kids. These are the people we would trust to collaborate on really important projects, things that matter to us. These are the people who you'd invite into your home, maybe even ask them to house sit for you. So we want to get your 5 closest people, and you'll see in the later slide, we'll start kind of analyzing them a little bit, but for now, just 5 people. I'll give you 90 seconds to come up with those people, and then we'll start to analyze.
"60 seconds remaining." I didn't set up having music while you were doing this, but there's music playing in my head, which is why I'm dancing around. You have 30 seconds. All right, friends, that is time. Please put down your pencils.
All right, so even if you weren't able to come up with 5, that's perfectly okay. If you have 3, if you have 2, if you have 4 people that are closest to you, this activity will still work for us. So now that you have your 5 people, we're gonna move to the next slide, please, Joseph. And we're gonna do a quick analysis. So you'll see the boxes here for race, gender, class, ability, education, and recovery status. Most of these are self-explanatory, but with recovery status, it could get a little bit complex. So for our purposes, we're going to define it as, does your person identify as someone in recovery? It's not our definition of recovery, but do they identify as someone in recovery or not? So you're going to put a check mark, a star, an X, whatever you wanted to do to mark and indicate whether or not that person is the same as you when it comes to race, gender, class, ability, education, and recovery status. So we're looking for people who are the same or identify as having the same identity. So we'll give you 2 minutes to go ahead and do your check marks on the people who have the same race, gender, class, ability, education, recovery status as you, and we will check back in. I do wish we had music, so I guess you'll just have to play music in your head or in the background.
And that timer is going. Because you already have the stuff written down, we're going to change that to 90 seconds. Hopefully you know these things about your folks. And if you don't know it about the folks, that's okay too. All right, time's going. I'm going to figure this music thing out. Give me a second.
Being afraid, travel down the road and back again. But it's true, you're a parent,
There's a, first of all, thank you, whoever's doing this. Keep it going. Secondly, in the chat, there's a question about what we mean by class, and we're talking about financial status of family or individual. Are they middle class, upper class, lower class, talking about their financial status in the world, economic status.
Okay, got me excited, man. It's 'cause I'm sure that
All right, that should do it. I see most heads are up. And who played the music? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, that's me.
Thank you.
Aaron.
Thank you. We did a workshop yesterday. I told you we did the thing in Richmond yesterday. And that's how I sang that song to bring people back from one of our breakouts. So it's very apropos. Okay, awesome. Robyn, take it away.
Okay, so now we're just going to share out, and we're going to try to do it in an organized way so that we can get a feel for how similar to us our network is. And we'll just start with the first column. We'll start with race. And we'll start by putting in the chat the number of people who have the same race as you on your list. So in the chat, if you have 3 out of 5, put a 3. If you have 4 out of 5, put a 4. 5 out of 5, 5. Okay, you got it. The chat's going. So we've got 1, 5, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4 out of 5, 3, 5. All right, so when it comes to race, and Joseph said he's done this activity before in quite a few settings, and it generally is 3 and above when we're talking about our people that are closest to us. Although I did see Dara has 1. You're an outlier. All right, let's move on to the next category. Gender. Go ahead and put the number of people who are the same as you in your network in gender. 4, 3, 5, 3, 4, 4, 3. We've got some 3s. 2 out of 5. Okay, nice. All right, so just at a quick glance, most of us are still 3 and above when it comes to our network as being similar to us in gender. Next category, class. Let's pop our numbers in. Socioeconomic status. Are we hanging out with people that are the same as us? 1, 3, 2, 5, 2, 4, 4. Okay, so we have some lower 3s. Interesting. I'd love to do a deeper dive into that, but we don't have time. Maybe another training. Next category, education. Do we have similar education as our network? Education, 5 out of 5. 1s. 1s, 4s, 3s, 5s. Nice. This is looking closer to socioeconomic or to gender or class. Now, ability, in terms of ability and disability. How many do you have similar to you? 0. Wow. Did not expect some 0s. Nice. Okay. 5, 1, 4, 2, 4. Let's see if we have any 3, 5. Okay, interesting. Oh, I think I went out of order. But then we'll do our last one, recovery status. So this is the people you know, if they identify as in recovery, or not, if you're not in recovery. Are they the same as you? Let's see. Ooh, we're good. 5, 4, 0, 4, 5, 4, 2, 3, 0s. So 3. All right. All right, beautiful. So we had a little more diversity in our network in certain areas than in others, which is interesting and something that we could explore on our own. To see why that might be for us as individuals. But a lot of us had a network that's very, very similar to us. So next slide, Joseph, we'll talk about why did we do that? You know, why is it relevant to look at the people closest to you? And when we think about some of the projects we're trying to do, I read some of your community impact projects, some of your day of service events, some of the work that you want to do in your communities. Very often, most of us, and I know this includes me, have gaps in our network in order to achieve those goals. So when we're thinking about achieving big things, our network also must expand. So we've got to look at where are our gaps in our network when it comes to trying to get our projects done, trying to make a difference in the community. Next slide. And now Joseph will start in on the transition to part 2. But this is just some of the people who may fill gaps. Joseph?
Yeah, awesome. Hello, everybody. So what we have on the screen right now is by no means a comprehensive list, but we wanted to start the conversation. Looking through the things that we have done in the past, these are a few of the positions that we've needed to fill to get things done. And to build off of the last exercise, a lot of the times when we're thinking about where do we want to put our energy, where do we want to do help work in the world, a lot of it is based off of our lived experience, the people closest to us. And so when we are thinking, and I know, you know, when I was a young person in college and I wanted to, you know, put together not a boycott, sorry, the word I'm looking for, a protest during the war. Like, I didn't know anything about permits. I didn't know anything about sound systems. I just had a bunch of angry young people, and we needed to figure out how we were going to make those things happen. So if you look at just this list here, I'm just going to point out a couple of things, and obviously this will be available to you. You don't have to write it down really fast. This will be available to you in Google Classroom. But you have, for instance, the fundraiser. So if you look back at that last exercise that we did, and I am, you know, a lower middle class, you know, but I have started 2 nonprofits, and nonprofits run when you have donations come in. So I've had to figure out who can put me in touch with people who are not in my financial space so that we can raise some of that money. And then we think nowadays we're talking about the influencers. We have influencers online. We're not necessarily talking specifically about like Instagram influencers, but people who can bring attention to what it is that you are trying to do, and help you with those big ideas that you're trying to make. Marketing, social media. I've been on social media for a decade and I still have not mastered social media. So who are we going to reach out to find the folks that can fill in the gaps so that our amazing event is recorded, or that our idea for a quilt is put online and people around the country can see and contribute to it, so on and so on and so forth. I think all of us have the experience enough to realize that it is not just as easy as looking into your phone and flipping through. And so another exercise that we wanted to do, now that you've seen this list, we want to talk about what connects us to people who are outside of our network. Because if it were as easy as flipping through the phone book and finding, oh, videographer, and calling them, it would be a transactional process only. And so we want to talk about what are the things that we can do to connect with people on a deep, meaningful, authentic relationship level that will motivate them to help us with what we need, to give their resources, their talent, their skill, their time, their money, whatever it may be, to what we are trying to accomplish. And so I have a definition of values here, and you can see it says our beliefs about what is important in life. But the thing that I want to focus on is that last phrase here: they serve as standards to motivate behavior. Motivate behavior. When we can identify the values of what we are working on, the project that we are working on, and we can, through story, connect with other people in our community on those values, once that value has been ignited, it is the precursor to action, to a behavior. I believe in this, therefore I do this. And that's why identifying our values are super important, because just going in and trying to win with the moral argument is oftentimes a lacking way of making your case, because a lot of people have the moral argument. Again, as I said earlier at the beginning, a lot of people are working on a lot of important work. It's the stories that connect us, the values that connect us. And we're going to watch a quick video to break up the chit-chatting here. But when we're watching this video, I want you to be thinking about what the shared values of the people in this movement were. And I want you to think about how many human resources, the categories that we talked about earlier, were identified in the different folks that are working here, right? Like, it's not just a bunch of people who ride the bus that are here fighting for this. There are people from many different spaces that come together to make this happen. I want you to be looking for that, and we're going to talk about it a little bit when we come out of the video.
In Montgomery, Alabama,
Sound?
people looked at how they were being impacted negatively by their society, and they assumed responsibility for change.
Joanne Robinson was an English professor at Alabama State University, and she headed up an organization called the Women's Political Council. Joanne Robinson had an episode on the Montgomery bus where she is accosted by a bus driver, and she leaves the bus, in terror. She thought the bus driver was going to hit her as he demanded she sit in a black-only section in an almost empty bus. When she talked to other women in the Women's Political Council about this episode, she found out that they had similar experiences. There were a number of arrests in 1955 of black women who were violating the segregation ordinance on the buses. And on the night of December 1st, when Rosa Parks is arrested, Joanne Robinson springs into action, and they actually execute this plan to initiate a bus boycott.
At the time, most people rode the bus to kind of get around. There weren't as many cars on the road. So you begin to realize that if we don't ride the buses, we are able to kind of break the system to a great degree.
Joanne Robinson comes on campus late that night with a couple of students, runs off 50,000 flyers. The next morning, between classes, they pass out these flyers. She calls a civil rights attorney, Fred Gray. She calls E.D. Nixon, labor organizer, really the recognized leader of Black Montgomery, and they decide to endorse the boycott. They organize the Montgomery Improvement Association to execute and to coordinate the activities surrounding the Montgomery bus boycott. And they select this newcomer, Martin Luther King, to head up the Montgomery Improvement Association. Martin Luther King breathes into Montgomery ideas about love and civil disobedience, overcoming adversity.
And the people of Montgomery were willing not only to listen, but to act on this.
I was the NAACP Youth Council president, and I participated in the boycott. I walked to school, and we just saw the empty buses go by because there were no black people on them.
At the time that this movement began here, we had about 50,000 African Americans living in Montgomery, and there were pretty close to 50,000 black people who worked together during this bus boycott.
We stayed off the buses and found other ways to get to where we needed to go.
And so they bought station wagons, and they had an actual route, just like buses have routes.
For several weeks, I was a volunteer driver every day, going out and just hauling people to work or to school.
So people just didn't walk. They rode, but they rode in a system that they created. 382 days. That's a long time. Can you imagine how empowered people felt? It's like, we did what?
The Montgomery bus boycott says to the nation that segregation is no longer the law of the land. and that the formula for attacking segregation in all of its facets is going to be nonviolent civil disobedience on one hand and litigation on the other.
The boycott was one of the greatest examples of civic engagement of the 20th century.
Okay, I just want to go back here for a moment and take a look at this while you are thinking about what we just saw. Some of these things weren't necessarily in existence back then, but the public speakers, the person sharing the story, the resources, the college, the school, who made connections. So I'm going to come off of sharing here for a moment so that we can chat and I can see people's hands when they're raised and we can unmute you. But I would love to talk for the next 3 or 4 minutes about what you saw in this. And I have been on Zoom long enough to know how to stop sharing. There it is. If you are new to Zoom or don't realize how to raise your hand digitally, there's a little reactions button at the bottom and you can raise your hand. Or if you would love to throw it into the chat, you can throw your comments into the chat and we will see them there. But let's talk about it. What did you see? All right, I got Casey. I'm trying to unmute Casey. Oh, there you go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Thanks for being here, guys. Also, Robyn's my coach, so it's really very cool. But yeah, I saw that people from all over, different socioeconomic, different education, different races, just they acted. That was the word that got me, was act, not just listen, say, yeah, that's a great idea. So that's given me something to think about. Thank you.
Awesome. What I would love to point out about what you just said is the idea that when the time was right, they already had a plan going, right? And so one of my favorite quotes, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? And so coming to things like this, jotting down notes when you have great ideas, like going out and meeting folks, even though you don't know what it is you're going to need them for, like doing that networking is so super important. You can't wait for the issue to come for you to start preparing your resources, or you're going to waiting another 6 to 8 months or years to make it happen if it were. All right, Tom, talk to the people. Someone unmute Tom.
Okay, am I unmuted? Hi, everybody.
Yes.
Hello, my recovery family. Great to see everybody. What hit home to me is how many times you think you can do something on your own, but you need that cross section of experts. And it's also, I've often said one of my superpowers or my superpower is networking, and that reinforces that to me. So I can build my network. So when the time comes, that person who might not be in my 5, but has offered me the help of, hey, if you need a place to hold a meeting, I've accumulated that so I can reach out to those people. But the biggest hit for me, Joseph, was you're not in this alone. And if you try to do this by yourself, you're just going to fail.
You're going to burn out. Absolutely. And I think we have, unfortunately, a society that tries to idolize the idea of doing it all on your own, picking it up on your shoulders. And we know about forming bad habits, and we know the importance of self-care. And none of these things will be served by us burning out. There's nothing glorious about that. And I think that understanding that, embracing that, and taking time to know what your skills are before going out and seeking others, and realizing even if you do know how to do something, maybe you're not the person to do it in this particular project because you're needed somewhere else. Just things to keep in mind. I got 1 more minute on my 4 minutes. If anybody would like to raise their hand, and let's read what we have in here. That's what the chat's for. Robyn, would you like to share some of the things that people said in the chat?
Sure. I was just responding to Diana. Diana shared that what she saw in the clip was a diverse community of people organizing, acting, and leading. And she points out positivity, commitment, and the substantial length of time, like the long haul. You got to be in it for the long haul. And then we have Mark shared that it's crossing races and even religions, and pointed out the Lutheran, are they called ministers? Now I'm giving away my lack of knowledge of the Lutheran faith, but and how he volunteered to drive people, and that sometimes when people lend their credibility to a movement, like a religious person, then they seem to be more ethical. Maybe more people will follow.
All right. Now let's turn this around and look at it from a different perspective, because I think that last thing really transitions well into where we're going with this whole exercise. So you have a white man volunteering to help with an issue that primarily, at least on the surface, affects Black people. And we know, no matter how smiling and handsome he looked in this picture, that back then, that was a very dangerous thing. It was one thing to be a Black person trying to stand up for your rights. It was a completely different thing to be a white person who was betraying their race to support this movement. It wasn't transactional. They didn't say, hey, we're going to give you $20 if you drive these folks. Can you do it? There had to be an underlying value, probably closely tied with his religious belief, but an underlying value that they shared. And it wasn't about riding the bus. It was greater than that. And so I would love to hear your thoughts in the chat or out loud about what were the common values that you can think of that they must have had in common. The preacher's son with the beautiful mind that graduated from college early, the folks, the professors at the university that allowed them to make 50,000 copies. So put your hand up if you got a thought on that. In the chat so far, I see compassion, I see fairness. I see Robin doing a great job putting my questions down. Thank you, Robin. Respect. Wendy, you don't have to come off, but you can either come off and say it, but respect for what? Basic human rights. Respect for life. The importance of equality. I would like to think of common decency as enough to get folks to move, but unfortunately, I would say that it is oftentimes not common to put yourself out in this particular way. And so I think it's an extraordinary thing. I see Chantel with her hand raised. I will ask to unmute. Go ahead, Chantel.
Oh yes, hi everyone. Sorry, I didn't realize I was listed under Aaron. So I just wanted to. He sent me the link directly, so probably that's why. I just wanted to also realize and say like that and recognize the struggle and the pain that went into that type of protesting, right? And that someone said that from their point of view that it was positive, and in that aspect, there's no positivity fighting for basic human rights, right? Just being honest, right? There was resilience, there was bravery, there was a lot of things. I think just acknowledging that sometimes we don't have to be positive in spaces because that's just not there. That we don't have to force it, especially when things are hurting folks. and things like that, but doesn't mean that we still can't show up and organize and advocate for change.
Thank you, Chantel. Is there anything else in the chat, Robin, that we want to mention before we move on to the next part of this?
Yeah, we had justice and bravery, strength, unity, worth, and we saw dignity again as an underlying value.
Awesome. I will take this moment as we are transitioning into the how to say that those are all really great words. Really great words that have a meaning that maybe if you're in the room with someone who has a shared point of view of life, that they understand what you mean when you say those words. But we know that people on both sides of an issue can take a word and use it to their advantage. And so the reason why we don't just make lists of words is because words are symbols, and we need to be very clear what we mean when we say this symbol means something to me. And how we do that is by using our lived experience, or the lived experience of the people that we are serving, with their permission, to paint the picture of why these things that we are fighting for matter. We at RAP for many, many years have been working on how to best use story to invoke folks to, or motivate behavior of the people in our communities, so that they understand what's really important to us. And so this next part is going to dip into that. Oh man, we have 18 minutes left. What is going on, Robin? All right, so what you see here is a list of some values. And I just want you to take a look as I'm spanning across here. This is from the R1 Learning Service. If you're not familiar with R1, they put together these really amazing cards so that folks can have conversations about things on a deeper level using tools. There's a digital version, there's physical version, and I will put a link in the chat, which will allow you to do this values exercise online. So if you're interested in learning more about values, or having, because the list that they have is like 3 times this size. So this is just the beginning, but to give us an idea of what we mean when we say values and how broad the term is, right? There's so many things that fit under that umbrella, and how important it is for us to be able to speak to the values of our organizations. Yes, Jacqueline, R1 is amazing. And there you go.
You sharing your screen?
Am I not sharing my screen?
No.
Oh.
You took us off just for that chat. So
Oh, nice.
I think you might want to be sharing.
Yeah, I do want to be sharing my screen. Hold on one second. Now you know what I'm talking about? Those words up there, lean in close, read some of them. My bad, folks. So I want you to be thinking about your projects, what you're working on, and what values are at the bottom of that work. And I say at the bottom because I'm thinking of it as the foundation on which we're building the projects and the causes that we are advocating for. Our values are at the bottom of that. And sometimes because they are at the bottom, we don't take the time to understand how intricate this conversation can be. So one more moment just to take a look at some of these ideas, because we're going to come back to this in a second. What you have here on this screen, and actually I'll pause because I know that we're getting to that last 15 minutes. The idea for this workshop, if we land the plane here, it's not you know how to do everything. If we land the plane here is you understand the importance of these things that we're talking about, and you begin using the resources that RAP has to increase your knowledge on them. So I don't want to, turn into an auctioneer here and start reading things off really fast, because I'm afraid we're going to run out of time. I'm also using this opportunity for you to start looking at what I have on the board here. So when we do a full workshop, what we call at LMS Voice a narrative disruption workshop, we are looking to take stories and turn them into advocacy. And this tool that you see right here, designed by myself, we're working on it. We're going to get a professional to do it eventually. But what's important are the words, the introduction of who we are. But more importantly, half of this is our story. Before we even get into asking people for what we want, what we need for them, what we want them to do, how we want them to advocate, half of this is our story, establishing why we are connected through our values. And so once you've established your values, you can use that to begin looking for stories of where your values have been given to you, if you will, right? Where they were born. And using those stories, we can connect to folks who are outside of our lived experience. So when I was, this happened. From this, I learned. This is why I do the work that I do. And I know that you also care about, and this is where our values come in. We go from ourselves, we call it, the story of self, to the story of us by connecting folks through our values. I know that you care about freedom. I know that you care about human life. I know that you care about young people. I know that you care about family. I know that you care about, and I know that because you are here, because you do this, because this is your job, because it represents you show it through your actions in this space. This is what we're dealing with. It may not be a problem that you have directly, white Lutheran minister, but it's something that you understand as being a wrong that needs to be righted. We must do this. If we don't, then, but if we do, then, and the most important thing, getting them to act. So join me by. Now, again, you're going to get this. We're going to breeze past it for a moment. You're going to get this in the presentation. But what I want to do now is I want to show you what it looks like. Yesterday, I had the honor of doing a presentation for RAP and the Year of the Peer, Virginia Year of the Peer, and McShin. And I challenged myself to tell a new story in the moment. So this is a story that I'm coming up with. It's a true story, but I'm coming up with it in the moment. And I'm attaching it to a cause that was given to me by somebody in the audience. And the reason I'm telling you that is because our stories don't have to necessarily be directly associated with the cause that we are fighting for, as long as the values connect. And so we're going to watch this, and then we're going to take a moment to discuss it. We were going to go into breakout rooms. I don't think we have time for that. So we're going to discuss it as you've been discussing everything else, and Robyn will lead that conversation. So here is a video while you're looking at it. What values do you hear clearly come through? What values do you hear? And what do you feel was most effective about this story? And we'll come back to those questions in a moment. When I was in college, I had a professor who's my, what did he call it? The person who watches you. Advisor. He was my advisor. Thank you. And he was the first gay black man I had ever known personally. And he was fabulous as a human being. I grew up in a very traditional household. And so when I went to school for the first time, I saw someone living their life with a freedom that I had never experienced. Not that I was gay, needed to come out, but there were so many things about my personality that were actually closeted, being a black man who grew up in a primarily white area in Northern Virginia. And to see someone live their truth so unbelievably, fabulously, inspired me. I remember the first time I went into his office and I was looking at the art in his room, and he'd probably get canceled today. It was hella inappropriate, but it was the first time that I'd seen, but I could go into a straight male's office and see a picture of a woman on the wall, scantily clad, and no one would say anything. So to go in and to see men, beautiful men in art, I was inspired. I was inspired. It was the first step. It was like he gave me permission with his freedom to be a more free version of myself. Today, we have a problem in our schools where people are afraid to talk about the problem that we're facing. And it's a big problem. They don't have the freedom to save their own lives because we can't say drugs, we can't say opioids, we can't say Narcan in the schools. I do this work to help people find that freedom. And I work with an organization that is going from school to school to school, trying to free young people and teachers so that they can be able to save themselves by doing something very easy. Putting a Narcan box in the school and teaching them how to use it. The same way we put a CPR, the same way that we put a first aid kit and teach kids CPR, we want to save lives because the value that I know every person in here has in common, no matter who you pray to or where you came from, is that life is important. And our young people's lives, most important. If we don't do this, we're telling our young people that it's okay to not talk about the problems that we have in our lives, to hope that someone else will come and fix it. But if we do, not only are we empowering them to save each other's lives, we are giving them an actual symbol of what freedom looks like. So I need your help. We have to get on the phone, we have to send letters in, we have to get the local school board to put this up for a vote. In the back, we have a petition going around. You put your name on the petition and you put your email address on the petition. Not only will it go to putting this in front of the school board, but we're going to send you a template where all you have to do is sign your name, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and send it in. Or if you got some free time, you can call and call and call and call and call and call and call until something happens. So before I leave, I know this is a little. Can I just get a show of hands of how many people in this audience believe that freedom for our young people is important? All right. Can I get a show of hands of how many people in this audience are going to take the time to prove that freedom is important by signing that petition? Dun, dun, dun. We don't need the word reflections while we reflect. You know what we're doing now. Okay. To be clear, just before we jump in, not perfect, right? This was my first draft of a story that I told in the moment, but I think that I hit on a bunch of points, things that we saw in that slide, and now I would like to hear. I see here now we have a bunch of reflections. Robyn, if you want to lead this last conversation about what they got out of it and what they thought worked, that'd be awesome.
Sure. And Joseph and I talked a little bit earlier that we are open to staying after. So I know we're getting close on time, but he and I blocked another 30 minutes to continue the discussion or to answer questions from our own organizing experience of practicing some of the things we're talking about today. So if you'd like, you can stay after, but if not, obviously you can pop off. But I'll start by just sharing some of the things in the chat. And while I'm sharing those, if anybody wants to share, come off mute, please raise your hand and we will unmute you so that you can speak and share what you saw. And we have some values, but we also want to find out what you thought was most effective in basically identifying the values and trying to bring others in that may not be the same as us. So we've got Jacqueline. Jacqueline beat Tom in coming up with authenticity. I just want everyone to know that. So she saw freedom, authenticity. Nikki saw openness, honesty. Erin saw enrolling others, getting others to commit to act. Wendy saw freedom, choice, and education. Leah saw honesty, community, lived experience. Oh, I love that. What we might think is effective. If you believe X, you must take Y action. Tom saw unconditional positive, sorry, I went into Rogers for a second. Unconditional self-acceptance. And Casey saw deep passion. Now, Casey, I saw your hand up. Would you like to share what you saw was most effective or some of the values? Let me see if I know how to unmute you. I do not. Erin, do you know how to unmute? Okay.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Joseph, for that presentation. I don't know, Robyn's teaching me also to, you know, when I speak from the heart and what I'm saying is what my beliefs are, I saw the impact that it had, like you value life, right? Why shouldn't the kids have access to this? They're dying left and right also. And I don't know about where everybody else lives, but I know where I live, it's taboo to even talk about opioids or talk about giving the children tools to use to help somebody who's in trouble or if they're in trouble. So I think that what I saw was the CPR thing, like just so unfortunately I am an oral processor, so I know I can send people in circles sometimes. I don't mean to, but I could tell that you had a big impact because that's what needs to happen in every school, and I appreciate you for doing that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Casey. I saw a lot of people thought the CPR analogy was effective, saving lives. Would anybody else like to come off mute?
I'll jump back in real quick and say, thank you, Robyn, and say this before we get into the last 15 minutes, like Q&A period that we're going to sit here for. Sit here for, that sounded like it was a bad thing. Sit through with joy. So the one thing I wanted to point out is the closing. Those things that I spoke about are so important to getting people to connect with you. If you've done the emotional work and you've written the story and you've created a space where there's an audience somehow, and now you're in front of that audience and you have a chance to tell them your story, if you don't have the thing, the mechanism of which they are going to be able to interact with you ready to go, the petition, the QR code, the how you're going to gather their information, you're going to lose it. And I liken it to learning how to fly a plane but not land one. Everything you did up into getting everyone to the place where they wanted to go doesn't matter if you don't know how to get the plane on the ground. So please keep that in mind, because as someone who travels a lot, the main coaching point that I am finding with folks is they have a list of things they want you to help them with, but they don't know how to ask you to do it. So it's important. And if you don't have that knowledge, then that's another spot in your network that you can reach out to someone in this larger network of folks who are fighting for the same thing and be like, yo, who has it? Okay. Taking a step back. It is now 1 minute to 8. Erin, you raised your hand. Did you want to transition us or say something for folks who might have to leave? Or were you just going to tell me how much you enjoy my new haircut? What were you going to say?
I was just kind of still in reflection mode, I think, just from your story. And so I didn't want to try to close it out because I think it's a good conversation, and good chat. I think like it just like had me thinking about like when I was in my active drug use or alcoholism. like it took a very long time, and this is like years and years and years and years into recovery too, like took a very long time to figure out values and who I was. And like I'd kind of like, even when I was in my active drug use, I would like be this way with one group and a totally different way with another group, and I'm like chameleon in a lot of different places with a lot of different groups. And so it takes and so if people are kind of in that process of like the storytelling and what is my public narrative and how can I use that for instruction, it's like, and like I used to look at people that like I saw them and I knew immediately, like you were talking about the professor, that they were authentically themselves, right? And I remember like kind of saying like, oh, I wish I could be like that. I wish I could be like I wish I'd be that. And I said that until I started being authentically myself and learning who I was. And I just wanted to share that because it's like there, if you think about the fact that like LGBTQ individuals right now, like under attack policy wise, violence wise, you know, a different population. So it's like if people are struggling to embrace who they are in a world that almost like forces people to hide who they really, you know what I mean? It's like, you got like, so I just kind of wanted to ask like how people are combating that. And I saw some stuff in the chat too, where somebody was talking about wanting to do the right thing with Good Samaritan and things going backwards, and you know, are people that use drugs are under attack, and people that sell drugs are under attack, and so it's just like, I guess I don't know what my real question is, but like in terms of like people that might be struggling, like trying to like really embrace those values that they hold to them in a world that almost forces people to hide it. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if that would help spark conversation, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll say something, Robyn, if you want to say something, and then we can do questions in the chat if people want to have specific questions about anything that we did here. And I know I speak for Robyn when I say we are open and available. We would like you to reach out to us if you have questions. Obviously, some of the stuff that we do is service-based, but conversations, questions, one-offs, emails, things of that sort, we are here because this is a cause that we both very much believe in. So to speak to what Aaron said, and briefly, one of the reasons why I chose the story that I did was because I realized that there are a lot of people who are not authentically themselves and can relate to that as a desire of theirs. And I also know that people express themselves in different ways. And so for me, sometimes people expressing a part of themselves that they wish they could live more honestly is by going out and helping a community, right? Or giving their money to a cause. Like, I wish I could talk more loudly about this, but I don't feel like I can. But what I can do is speak with my money, or speak with my this, or speak with my that. And so I think that when we are looking at how we can have these very sensitive conversations and to bring these things to light about folks that are being pursued, I don't know if everybody who is being silent is an advocate for the things that the loud people are screaming about, right? And so how do we get those silent folks to speak another way? Because maybe they're not going to shout it out loud. Maybe they're not going to join us with a picket sign, but recognizing that not everyone is going to make change in the way that we are ready to make change, and speaking to that, and trying to meet folks where they are, because, you know, to make the meal, you're going to need someone to bring this, and someone to bring that, and someone to bring this, and someone to bring that. And we are here all the time. So we're the cooks, We just need people to bring things to us, and to do what they're ready to do. So that's a part of a thought on that. That's, at least, I'm not going to say it's a direct response. I think it's just the next thing that I thought of after you thought of that.
Tom has his hand up.
Hey, Tom, you're on mute. Tom.
Yeah, and
There
you
you
should
go.
be able to unmute yourself now.
I
There you
got to
go.
do it on my side too.
Mhm.
It's a two-ended proposition, right? I think the thing that hit me, what Aaron said, was that chameleon statement of how it's not your authentic self, but it's a part of yourself that you project out there to fit into that group. And the biggest breakthrough for me was that acceptance on both ends, acceptance of who I am and acceptance of others as who they are. And that helped me get over that shame of my past indiscretions, whatever you're calling addictions, use, whatever. And that brought also to the table the fact that we are not alone. And just to divert for a second, the biggest aha moment of tonight is I've been working so hard on my story and trying to tell my story. That aha moment of the self, us, and now what's next. If you don't have that what's next, like Joseph said, if you don't have that team ready to act, then you're just telling a story that you could be telling Winnie the Pooh. You got to have that ability to have that team in place to move on what you feel your story is telling. That was like the light bulb. And I appreciate that. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Any other questions for us, folks? I'm not rushing upstairs. There's two children yelling at each other. So let's get a question out there. Okay. Hey, Casey, welcome back.
Hi guys. I know I'm such a talker. But really I hadn't thought, I'm already putting a board together for small, because Robin taught me, Casey, make sure you have people that you're going to hear. Like, like Case, that is way off base, go this direction, or how about we go up instead of down here, or whatever it is, right? And that really was a crucial turning point for me in the project I'm working on, because I needed to hear that so that I can remember that, this isn't just this is for people to heal. Like, the bottom line of my project is for families and loved ones to heal. And so maybe feel like they're being heard, right? So I don't have the line on that. And I've been very blessed through RAP to have connected with Bev of the Wisconsin Quilts. And she totally hooked me up. She was like, do not reinvent the wheel. She spent an hour and a half on the phone with me late last week, early this week, and gave me an open line to her. And just really, this whole thing, what's next, have the what's next ready to go. I'm keeping stuff real tight because I don't really trust too many people in my area with this. So I've got I brought in another key player that I'm speaking with tomorrow, but I have my friend who's urban. I'm completely rural. I have a girlfriend on the West Coast who is gonna, like Robin told me, she could help you hone with your research, which is true because I haven't done real research since graduate school. That was 100 years ago. And I just, I only have one person right now of a different race than me. And it's not that I was looking at him for that, but he's the man, and he's in the jails, and he's going to give me a whole different perspective on how to go about things. And I need these people to keep me on track, because Aaron knows I'll be talking about my project. Next thing I'm off on a Dead Show is that in 92, you know what I mean? So I need that. And I'm just so grateful for all of this that you guys do for us, because I've been so inspired to move forward. That's it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for that. I one thought that came to mind while you were saying that. I want to talk about there is sometimes an apprehension when we start talking about identifying folks based on certain identities and diversities, because we don't want to dip into what is commonly known as tokenism, right? So when we talk about the importance of diversity, we understand that there are diversities that are seen and unseen. And we also understand that some folks live in places where it is homogenous for the most part. And so the idea of reaching out for the sake of is not where you want to go with this, right? No matter what the diversity is. But you know, if you live in an area and it's like, why I don't know, I don't hang out with Black people regularly. Why would I want a Black person as part of this? Well, it's the thing that you're working on affect their community also, right? And that's where you begin to say, oh, wow, you know, I don't have any disabled people or other ability people as part of my conversation. And I know this is something that affects every human being. So if it's an all bodies, all types situation that we're dealing with, that's one of the reasons why we want to spread it out to other communities, and why it's important for us to talk about diversity and inclusion and to read about these things so that we can arm ourselves with the language that allows us to have these very uncomfortable conversations in a way that is effective and can save lives, because the saving life part trumps the uncomfortable part. So let's keep bringing that up. I appreciate you saying what you just said, because it's not talked about enough. We say the diversity, but we don't really talk about how we can actually do it and what it looks like in real practice. And that's because it's a hard it's a hard conversation to have. So I know that RAP is working on materials and things of that sort to support that conversation. So yeah, all right, that's it. Anybody else? 2 minutes. 8:15 on the East Coast. I'm going to bed. What's going on? Robyn, would you like to say goodbye and then I'll say goodbye?
Yeah, I just want to express my gratitude for everyone on this call and all the work that you do across the country. It's hard work, and seeing you and hearing you just keeps me motivated and keeps me inspired. I see Jacqueline has her hand up, so I don't want to keep going with my goodbye until she gets to speak.
Sorry, I just really wanted to highlight one thing. Joseph, when you drop that link for the values in the chat, I don't know where it is, but can you drop it one more time? I am just saying, I learned about this values model from Joseph because we did some coaching together in West Virginia. And it was the first time I saw this values deck. And this is what I use in my coaching. And it's the first thing that I do is establishing what people's values are, because I find that the biggest thing, it's a lot easier to make decisions as to where you want to lend your energy or what you want to speak up about when you know what your values are. And I think it's important that if you are solid in your values, then it's a lot easier to say yes and no to things. So just as a general, for your own personal good, even just away from advocacy, this values deck is amazing. I really recommend it. And
I'm going to repost it.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Yeah, and one of the reasons I wanted to do this training and
good job, Nikki.
Have been working with Joseph is because as I go around in my organizing and I talk to different people in different organizations in Nevada, they keep saying, we need to get this out of our own community. The same people are showing up at the events. For years, the same people are there. They show up, they leave. and everyone I'm talking to is saying we need to identify a way to grow the movement beyond this core group that we have. And this is one of the ways to do it. Look towards movements like the civil rights movement, the bus boycott, find out, oh, there isn't just one person that's doing everything, even though we all thought it was Martin Luther King Jr. It's a huge network of people, a huge network of diverse people. And so that's one of the main reasons I wanted to do this, this workshop, was to help me learn and to also identify ways that we can move beyond our core group, keep our core group strong, but move beyond and bring people into the fold. So thank you for being here.
And before I say goodbye, I'll let Hanlon say something. You have to press unmute.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
We now can, yes.
All right. I just want to tell you that you guys have helped me a great deal. Well, I listened to you with Cornell West, and certainly Robyn has made so much effect here.
Yeah.
But I want to say we're on our way to Nevadans for the common good. And we're going to be there with Susie and other people Robyn knows. So you guys are, this undertow we have, is real. And if we think we're having a hard time, it's not our fault. We're fighting a real monster. I'll shut up. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Hanlon. Casey, you'd like to say one more thing?
Yes, you had said it'd be okay to reach out to you. Is your email somewhere, or can you drop it?
I can drop it.
If that's okay.
Yes, it is okay. And also I was going to say, I am a consultant on the ORN. So that is one of the ways that you can bring this training into your space if you are interested. So I don't know how that works. I've never signed up for the ORN, like from the point of view from the outside, but I'm pretty sure that Mobilize link will help.
Yeah, I've spoke with them actually. They were very, very nice. They couldn't help me directly, but they did have 2 resources that I could use. So it was worth every minute. And they were very nice. Yeah.
There you go. And I'll start by, my last thing will just be this. It's a blessing to be here. It was a blessing to have the opportunity to work on this. Robyn, thank you so much. You were a great partner and support in making this happen. And I wanted to point out one last thing about just something out of the video. If you noticed, Martin Luther King was invited to the table. He didn't build the table. The people built the table. And then they went out and found Martin Luther King. They invited him to come and be the leader of the outside, the forward facing, the public facing, but they weren't waiting for a savior. They built it. And then when they had something, that person came. Keep building it. Keep doing the work that you're doing. And keep leaning on each other for support. Take care of yourselves so you can take care of each other. Have a good one. Tom, the answer is yes. Do you have my email address? If not, just shoot me another email. Aaron, is that your rap music that's happening?
So Wyclef always. I listen to a lot.
Everybody in the meeting. Good night, everybody.
Night, everyone. Thank you, John.